Welcome back to. And today I wanted to talk about how artists need to stop diluting their message. I think a lot of times what happens is people feel the need to water down what they're saying to get their point across. And although this can work, sometimes less is more. I think it is also crucial to be able to just say what is on your mind. Obviously, there's a difference between diluting your message and refining it, but I do think that it's crucial for artists to understand that their message matters and they shouldn't have to make it simpler or make it easier to understand for people. In my opinion, art is something that is meant to be thought about. Art is something that you sit down and you think about it and how it impacts you and what the creator is trying to convey. So, in diluting your message, you're necessarily diluting the importance of your work in someone else's eyes, right? If, for example, I made a painting and I make it super simple, it's just words on canvas. That's it. And the words read like, I like blue. Just super basic example. The viewer can only do so much with that. And when looking at that, the viewer realizes that you yourself do not value your message enough to give it a life, to give it some weight. Whereas if I painted a world, a beautiful scenery in different shades of blue, the viewer can look into it. It makes the viewer interact in a much deeper sense. And I am a firm believer that an art piece is not complete until a viewer interacts with it because they assign it its extended meaning. So, to clarify, there, in my eyes, are kind of multiple stages to building what we consider art. The first stage is getting the idea. The second would be to create or make that idea into something tangible, whether that be music, photography, a painting, whatever. And once you've completed it, the art in itself is not complete. Simply the artist's job is complete. From there, it becomes the viewer's role to finally finish that art piece. Now, the artist cannot be the viewer. You will never look at a painting with a fresh set of eyes if you created it. Another example being my music. I can never hear one of my songs the way someone else does because I know how many takes and I know how many recordings and how long I've worked on it. I know each little thing about the mix. To me, that song could be horrible. To someone else who does not know behind the scenes, was not there for that, they might think it's fine. And that's what gives it value. You can assign value to your work. That is a completely different thing. But when we are talking about art, the viewer creates the value. My hard work is there. That is the baseline. But that extended value is assigned by the viewer. Um, Van Gogh. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but Van Gogh was not a successful painter while he was alive. In his eyes, he did not meet the metrics he needed to. It wasn't until viewers assigned that value. Starry Night, in my opinion, is a masterpiece. It's beautiful. And that wouldn't be the case if a viewer did not assign that. I could make something and say it's a masterpiece, but there are too many emotions attached in the creation of that piece where my word is not valid. Artists have bias when they're looking at their own work, and it is different from the bias of the viewer, which is created from outside experiences. And because of that, you cannot dilute your message because you are inherently ruining your art. And it's so important that you say what is on your mind in the fullest extent. Because if you are unable to, then you cannot assign true value to your art. Now, value can be a little vague at times, mainly because the value I'm talking about is not necessarily tangible. It's more of an intrinsic factor. I might be using the word intrinsic wrong, but it is something that is not necessarily tangible or attainable. Something that makes me feel good has a high value to me. It's similar to the idea of utility and preferences in econ. So that's where the value is being derived. Not in the sense of, oh, this painting is worth X amount. That is a completely different kind of scenario and situation where there are a lot of other factors involved. But right now, I'm simply talking about how the three stages of art impact your message. It is so important, as I've already stated, that you do not dilute your message because then the viewer will not recognize the value. The potential value you could have created is not met. And at the end of the day, why are you not aiming to hit your potential or go beyond? It makes no sense to say, oh, I could do XYZ. I could do ABC, but I'm only going to do A and I'm only going to do X. Unless your message is clear by simply doing A and X, you are robbing yourself and the viewer of opportunities. You are robbing them of value, and you are robbing yourself of the connection you would have had to the art piece. I want to kind of rewind. I mentioned in the second stage, when you finish your art, how we can't assign it value. I kind of lied, but not in a whole sense. It's more so the fact that the creator of the art can assign it such a surface level value that it's almost unfair to really call it a value. How I value my work does not reflect how others will perceive it and how others will value it. My light was about to fall down. Also, I'm trying something new with the light setup. But where was I? Perception of value. It is so difficult for the artist to properly give something value because of their biases, as I mentioned before. But it becomes sort of a gray area. If the artist does not put any value towards their work, then what's the point of their message? That means their message is being diluted. So I wish I could like write out formulas for this. That's how much I like it's been like in the back of my head. But the less diluted your message, the more value the artist adds to the piece. And the more value the artist adds to the piece gets it closer to the potential value a viewer can give the piece. So realistically, more if you simplify it, less dilution, more value. And I want to touch back on the idea of less is more, where sometimes you can get your point across with less. When you look at minimalist pieces, they are not necessarily diluting their message because the message is still there. It is simply changed shape. There is still the depth, there is still almost all of the key points that they're trying to hit. It's just in a different form factor. So minimalism has a role, but it shouldn't be confused with diluting your message. And I think a perfect example would be in music. Take someone who writes complex lyrics, multiple entendres, metaphors, using all sorts of wordsmithing to really get their point across, points that are layered within other points, rich storytelling, versus a song like Just Wanna Rock by Lil Uzi. And this is no shade to Lil Uzi Vert, but I'm pretty sure there's a total of 60 words in that song that are repeated. There's that song is just that. It is the beat, the vocals, that's it. There is no deeper meaning, there is nothing else. Whereas there are other songs by the same artist where there is a less diluted message. I take that back. No, I don't. Um, but it's important to understand when you are diluting your message versus when you are stripping it down. Very different. Stripping it down in the sense of reshaping it into a slimmer form factor, um, rather than completely shifting what you were trying to say in the first place. You could go from I only like umbrellas that are black and wooden handles to just I like umbrellas. Very different. Which is why it's important to retain what it is you're doing. But yeah, um, this was kind of a longer one. And I definitely do think that there is room to expand and elaborate on these concepts, but I kind of just wanted to get this idea out there. So yeah, thank you.